So we got it to #1 that night. And then I thought, well, that's great, that's wonderful. I got it to #1. Now I just kick in my PR head. So Business Telegraph ran the story about me. So speak to my publishers, who are Blackstaff, and they're very excited about this because suddenly they've got an author who's prepared to work away at promoting the books, who's prepared to understand all of this new social media stuff, and who's prepared to do something other than just going along and doing a few book signings, which are complete and utter waste of time and money from everybody concerned. So they then, and I did some of this, I did some of the marketing myself because my wife conveniently originally ran a PR company, so it is a little bit easier for me. But we did some offline PR, both myself and with the publishers, sent the stuff out. It's a good business story for the Belfast Telegraph. They have a local author who uses a new media thing to get himself to #1 on Amazon. So that's just a little story about me there that went on the Belfast Telegraph. But I got a lot of other media coverage about it as well. I got a lot of stuff in the South too. One of the Sunday supplements in the South did a big piece in it. So I am then not selling huge amounts of books off the back of that, but I'm managing to take Twitter stuff into that much more traditional offline world, and all of that helps to build my credibility in other ways, which I then used later on. Obviously, it's much easier then to get online publicity, particularly those people who have helped me to do it. They want to write about how they helped this golfer get to #1. That actually benefits them because it benefits their perceived power. So this is the guy, Aidan Montague, who lives out in Australia, who's from Northern Ireland. And he writes a big blog post about this, and this is still very high up in my Google rankings. So if you search for John Richardson Golf, I think that post is still on page 1. So that's the interaction. He says, that's it, made #1 on Amazon, blah, 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 blah. And there's a bit of excitement going on. He took a snag of that page on Amazon, on Twitter, and then has used that. I got a lot of other additional PR off the back of that too. But that's just the 2 examples. So if you go back to that original thing, I'll not flick back to it, but I will come back to it later on. My strategy for how I drive them through to the names. Some of these things are quite soft. I'm not saying to him, when you write that blog post, will you make sure that you send people through to my squeeze page so I can get their email address? That's too aggressive. But I'm thinking that all the time. That helps to drive people through in a soft way. But what I've done is I've taken, if you consider within that strategy format that I had over in this corner was all of my social media stuff. I've taken it to more traditional offline media, i.e. PR and press coverage over on this side. So what you do is you end up managing to pull all of these different strands, all of these different parts of the promotional mix together so that you end up with, it's a very inexpensive way to do it. If we just go out and try and put everything into PR or everything into one of these individual things, it's much more expensive to just go down the one channel. I'm always looking for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different ways for all of these things to work together, and then they all become much more powerful. So the next phase of that was me then starting to experiment much more strongly with how I can continue to drive the sales of that book. Had a bit of momentum with it because we'd been at #1, but it was sort of hovering around that #2, #3 mark on the golf books on Amazon. And we lost a lot of that initial impetus. I'd had a huge amount of PR when I first completed the challenge in all of the magazines and so on. So then go back to those golf magazines and all of those other things that covered the challenge and say, here's the story again because of the book. It just becomes, right, I've written a book about that. They've done the story. They don't want to go on and go, I really don't really want to promote the book. So it was harder for me to get PR from the traditional sense of the original story. They're going, what's your new angle? And the new angle is never really that interesting to say I've got a book. Because, well, yeah, you join the line of all the other people, that the 100,000 people a year that write a book. So what I was doing then was trying to use a variety of these other things as well. This is my MySpace page, not MySpace, YouTube page. Break Power Golf is what I use for that. You can see a couple of things here. First of all, this is another one that I use because I used to use a different brand called Scratch to Scratch. And that Scratch to Scratch video, which is John Richardson on News Feature, that was me in the news about 5 years ago, actually, just after I'd finished the challenge, the UTV Live thing. So 2 minutes 37, but I've got 6,500 visitors on that. On that page, the only link that there is beside the video is to my squeeze page. It's a different squeeze page, but it's another way for me to collect the email address. So it's a soft thing there. credibility, being on TV, very, very important from an internet marketing perspective. Very few internet marketers, in terms of some of the stuff that I do, have actually been on TV, so it presents a big credibility improvement.